So here's a fun little thought experiment for you. You wake up tomorrow morning, check the weather, see fresh snow falling, and decide, completely spontaneously, that today would be perfect for skiing. In Europe, specifically at Les Vallées, the world's largest ski area, you can walk up to the ticket window and buy a day pass for about €82. That's roughly $90 to access 600 kilometers of terrain across multiple valleys. Meanwhile, if you try the same thing at Vail, you're looking at $240 for one mountain. And somehow, we've all just accepted this as normal. It's like we collectively agreed that skiing in America should cost the same as a car payment, and anyone who complains is just being unrealistic about the economics of snow. The thing is, this didn't happen by accident, and it's not really about the snow, the grooming, or even the cost of running chairlifts. What happened to American skiing over the past 15 years is one of the most elegant examples of corporate behavior modification disguised as customer convenience that you'll ever see. They didn't just raise prices, they completely restructured how we think about skiing, turning a weather-dependent, spontaneous mountain activity into something that requires the financial planning of a mortgage and the advance commitment of a gym membership you'll probably regret. This is the story of how American skiing became a subscription service that happens to involve snow. And why, if you want to understand the future of outdoor recreation in this country, you need to understand what happened when Wall Street discovered powder days. By the way, my name is Patrick. If you like the sort of content I'm making here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It helps out a lot. Now back to the video. Let's start with the obvious question. Why does it cost 3 times as much to ski in Colorado as it does in the French Alps? The standard industry explanation goes something like this. American resorts had to build entire towns from scratch in remote mountain locations, requiring massive private investment in everything from roads to sewage systems. European resorts, by contrast, developed around existing alpine villages with centuries-old infrastructure and public transportation networks. There's some truth to this. Vail, for example, was literally carved out of a sheep pasture in 1962. They had to build everything, the base village, the utilities, the access roads, because there was essentially nothing there except altitude and snow. But here's where that explanation starts to fall apart. Les Vallées isn't exactly operating on a shoestring budget. We're talking about 600 kilometers of interconnected terrain, with some of the most sophisticated lift technology in the world, spanning multiple valleys and elevation zones that make most American resorts look like bunny hills with delusions of grandeur. The operational complexity is staggering. Yet somehow, they've managed to keep day ticket pricing in the realm of what a normal human might spontaneously spend on recreation, rather than requiring a family financial planning meeting. The real divergence started in 2008, when Vail Resorts launched something called the Epic Pass. For $579, you could ski unlimited at 5 Vail-owned mountains for an entire season. It seemed like an incredible deal, and in many ways it was. But it was also the first move in a chess game that would fundamentally restructure American skiing. Because once you got people thinking in terms of season passes rather than day tickets, you could do some very interesting things with pricing. The beauty of the Epic Pass model, from a business perspective, is that it completely flips the traditional economics of skiing. Instead of customers showing up when conditions are good and staying home when they're not, you get paid up front, months in advance, regardless of snow conditions, weather, or whether people actually use what they've purchased. It's like a gym membership, except instead of guilt about not working out, you get guilt about not maximizing your investment in something that depends entirely on weather and your ability to take weekdays off. More importantly, once you've locked customers into the pass ecosystem, you can price day tickets however you want, because the day tickets aren't really meant to be purchased anymore. They're meant to be so obviously overpriced that anyone doing basic math will conclude they need to buy the pass instead. It's not pricing, it's behavior modification with a dollar sign attached. Altera launched the competing Icon Pass in 2018, and suddenly you had 2 mega passes controlling most of the major destination resorts in North America. Which sounds like competition, except both passes operate on the same basic principle. Pay us hundreds of dollars months in advance, or get absolutely destroyed at the window. It's like having 2 different cable companies, where both of them have decided that paying per movie should cost $50, so you'll obviously want the monthly subscription. What's particularly brilliant about this system is that it's trained an entire generation of skiers to think that spontaneity is financially irresponsible. The idea that you might wake up, see powder, and decide to go skiing without having made that decision in September has become a mark of poor planning, rather than the normal human response to good snow. We've collectively accepted that enjoying skiing requires the same advance commitment as buying season tickets to the opera. Meanwhile, in Europe, the fundamental structure still assumes that skiing is something people do based on conditions and availability, not subscription status. Les Vallées competes with dozens of other major ski areas within driving distance. If they priced out spontaneous visitors, those people would just drive to La Plagne or Vallées or any number of alternatives. Competition keeps pricing sane because the alternative is customers going somewhere else. American destination resorts, by contrast, have spent decades building captive markets. When you're staying in Vail Village, you're not casually driving to Steamboat Springs for better pricing. The geographic isolation that makes these places feel special also eliminates competitive pressure. And once Vail Resorts and Altera bought up most of the major players, even the illusion of competition largely disappeared. The psychological impact of this shift goes deeper than just sticker shock. Skiing used to be about reading weather, watching storm cycles, and making spontaneous decisions based on conditions. There was something beautifully chaotic about dropping everything for a powder day, or deciding that the sun was too good to waste. That spontaneity required a pricing structure that didn't punish weather-based decision-making, but subscription-based skiing turns weather obsession into anxiety. Instead of, the snow looks incredible, let's go, it becomes, I already paid for this pass, so I should probably use it, even though the conditions are mediocre and I'm not really in the mood. The financial investment creates obligation rather than opportunity. You're not skiing because you want to. You're skiing because you've already paid to ski, which is a completely different emotional relationship with the mountain. It's also worth noting that this transformation happened during the same period when skiing was supposedly becoming more accessible and democratic. Corporate consolidation was sold as a way to offer more value and more options to more people. The reality has been the opposite. Skiing is more expensive than ever for anyone who doesn't want to commit to a season pass purchased months in advance. If you're a college student, or someone with an unpredictable work schedule, or just a person who likes to make recreational decisions based on weather and mood rather than spreadsheet optimization, you've been systematically priced out. The rental car industry went through something similar over the past decade. What used to be a straightforward transaction, show up, rent car, return car, became a maze of advanced booking requirements, dynamic pricing, and artificial scarcity designed to push customers towards subscription services and advance commitments. The difference is that most people recognize rental car pricing as a customer-hostile nightmare. With skiing, we've somehow convinced ourselves that it's sophisticated revenue management, but here's what's really fascinating about this whole evolution. None of it was actually necessary from an operational standpoint. Vail Resorts is publicly traded, so their financial information is available. Their profit margins have increased significantly during the same period that they've been consolidating resorts and raising day ticket prices. This isn't a story about struggling mountain operations trying to cover rising costs. It's about discovering that you can train customers to accept almost any pricing structure if you make the alternative sufficiently inconvenient. The COVID era accelerated these trends in ways that probably wouldn't have been possible otherwise. Capacity restrictions and reservation requirements gave resorts the perfect excuse to implement systems that were really about demand management and revenue optimization. Many of these temporary measures have become permanent features because they work brilliantly for resort operators, and customers have proven they'll adapt to almost anything if the alternative is not skiing at all. European resorts dealt with the same pandemic restrictions, but most returned to traditional ticketing once restrictions lifted because their business models weren't designed around subscription-based revenue streams. They still need day ticket buyers to show up when conditions are good because that's how their economics work. American mega resorts, by contrast, discovered that reservation systems and capacity limits actually enhance the perception of exclusivity and scarcity that justifies premium pricing. Which brings us to the deeper question about what we've lost in this transformation. Skiing at its best is about responding to natural conditions, storms, snow quality, weather windows that might only last a few hours. The mountains operate on their own schedule, not ours. There's something profound about organizing your life around weather patterns and snowfall, about being flexible enough to drop everything when the conditions align. The subscription model flips this relationship completely. Instead of adapting to the mountain's schedule, we're adapting to corporate fiscal calendars and past purchasing deadlines. Instead of chasing storms, we're optimizing sunk costs. The mountain becomes something we've already paid for, rather than something we're choosing to experience. This might seem like a minor cultural shift, but it represents a fundamental change in how we relate to outdoor recreation. When access depends on advanced financial commitments rather than conditions and spontaneity, the activity becomes less about the experience and more about maximizing investment. It's the difference between going skiing and getting your money's worth out of skiing. The most frustrating part is how perfectly rational this all seems once you're inside the system. Of course you should buy the pass. The math is obvious. Of course day tickets are expensive. They're not really meant to be the primary product anymore. Of course you need to make reservations. How else would they manage capacity? Each individual component makes sense, which is how you end up with a system that collectively makes no sense for anyone who wants skiing to be spontaneous, weather-dependent recreation rather than a subscription service with mountain views. European skiing isn't perfect, and there are certainly expensive resorts in the Alps, but the fundamental structure still assumes that people might show up based on snow conditions rather than subscription status. The day ticket is still the basic unit of transaction rather than a penalty fee for poor planning. Competition still exists because resorts haven't been consolidated into two competing subscription platforms. What's happened to American skiing is essentially what's happened to most experience-based industries over the past 15 years. The subscription economy, dynamic pricing, artificial scarcity, and platform consolidation have transformed activities that used to be straightforward transactions into complex financial commitments that require advanced planning and optimize for corporate revenue rather than customer satisfaction. The difference is that skiing happens in mountains, with weather and conditions that can't be scheduled or predicted months in advance. Turning skiing into a subscription service fundamentally conflicts with what makes skiing compelling in the first place. You can't optimize powder days the same way you optimize Netflix viewing habits. But we've collectively decided to accept this transformation because the alternative, not skiing at all, feels worse than skiing under financially coercive conditions, which is exactly what makes it such an elegant example of corporate behavior modification. They didn't take away skiing, they just restructured it so that enjoying skiing requires accepting a relationship with mountains that's mediated by subscription platforms and advanced financial commitments. The next time you're standing at a European lift ticket window, paying a reasonable price for a spontaneous day of skiing, remember that this used to be how it worked everywhere. The idea that mountain recreation should require the advanced planning of a mortgage and the financial commitment of a gym membership isn't natural law, it's a business model. And like most business models that seem inevitable once you're inside them, it only works because we've agreed to pretend it makes sense. The mountains are still there, the snow still falls on its own schedule, and skiing is still about reading conditions and responding to weather. But increasingly, American skiing requires you to pretend otherwise, which might be the most expensive lift ticket of all. Hey there! If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and leave a comment telling me what you'd like to see covered next. This was Patrick, and as always, thanks for watching.